You ever noticed how a lot of the gods of death just have a tendency to stare at you? I always wondered why that was the case, and it took me a while to fully understand why it is that the gods like that just have a tendency to stare. Um, Anyways, before we get on to the depressing topics, hello everybody, welcome back. It is I, the Kemetic monk. I am also very sorry for being away for so long. I am not giving up on this channel. I hope everybody knows. I, unfortunately, am going back to college, and I think if anybody who has gone to college knows, you know how difficult it is. College is very, very hard to get through, get going. There's so much applying that you have to do, so much calling, and every single time I've tried getting around to make this video, I have always found myself not just finding out I had no more time left in the day and I was too tired, too sleepy, or all those other emotions. And I'm actually completely exhausted right now. I just got a new job because I got laid off at my farm job too. So I've been job searching everywhere, and I just got laid off, and I just got home from work at a gas station and standing around for 5 hours. I am exhausted, but I am really wanting to get this video out, and I'm hoping I can get the message across properly without making a third version of this video. The issue I have with this video is I can't really go off of a script like a lot of my other videos have been, because I feel like this message should be conveyed more directly, and I feel like writing a script will just keep making me feel sad. And you'll kind of see why I've been feeling sad when it came down to making these kinds of videos. So, in terms of the point of this video, which is I asked Anubis what death is like, and this is what he told me. So I want to kind of get something out of the way here. This is only from my interpretation, my speculation. This is from my experience. You want to have a different belief? That's fine too. I can't speak from your experience. I can only speak from my own. You want to say that I'm wrong and I'm delusional, suffering from psychosis? You are also free to do so as well. I just want to get my interpretation and my message out for those who resign with it and they think that this is what I'm saying might be correct. If they resign with it and they're like, yes, I feel like this is accurate, it correlates with my beliefs, then by all means go on ahead. If you have other questions, like, I have this experience, it's, if you're curious, you got questions, I always feel free to answer. I try not to go too much in a rant with this here. I know that this topic can be very controversial, especially if a Christian or a Muslim finds this video and they're going to be telling me it wasn't Jesus, so it's wrong. I just want to let this know that this is only an interpretation, this is only an experience, an encounter. Yours might be different, that's fine. Now, on to the actual video. What was the encounter like? I'm trying to slow down my talking so people can understand what I'm saying, because I'm like really tired and I'm trying not to force the words out. So, I want to clarify something real quick. If I start to cry in this video, which I likely won't. When I first tried to rehearse this, I couldn't stop crying. I think after trying to rehearse it a couple times, the pain became a lot lessened. If I start crying, it is not because I personally fear death. I don't fear dying. I only fear what I leave behind. I'm more worried that when I die, I will leave behind too much. I really love the world that I live in, and I worry that with death, I'll never be able to experience the world again. I love people, I love humanity, I love everything, I love cultures, the religions, I love everything about the world, and it makes me sad to think that one day I will die and I will no longer be able to experience everything that this world had to offer. Now, with that out of the way, what was it like? I can tell you from my experience, it was nothing like it is described in any religious text at all. I remember being brought into it was a big gray building. I want to say kind of like a castle. But it was like as I opened the door and it felt like I was passing into the other side. The inside of this room, it was like a throne room. There was pillars of fire. It wasn't like hell. There weren't pillars. There were like torches in there, and there were a couple thrones that the people were not people, but there were a couple thrones in the center of the room. In the middle throne was Hell from Norse. And the only thing I can describe Hell as is like this picture. A beautiful lady. She was gorgeous. Beautiful. Looking at her, I felt comfort, but I felt I'm sorry if I'm talking in a weird British accent. I don't know where that's coming from. I felt comfort, but I also felt intimidated. Because it was like Anubis, it's the stare that they have. And to her left was the Morgan. And I knew it was the Morgan from the black hair and that motherly kind of look she has on her face. To my side, it was Anubis, who was not showing me his face, which is pretty known for Anubis. To the side of Hell, from the right side, there was, I think, Thanatos. And to his side was Hades. And I think there were more beings there. I did not see them. I did not see them. These were the 4 that I saw. There were likely more there. And I remember as I'm being brought up to them, I felt pitiless. Pitied-less, like pity-ed-less. Not pitiless, but like pitied-less. I felt like they didn't have sympathy or pity. But at the same time, I felt like they understood. When I was brought up to them, I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying. I felt so sad. I remember I couldn't stop crying. And it's kind of like the Egyptians described it. My heart was heavy. But it wasn't heavy because I had some baggage. It was heavy because I was sad I had died. And it's like, to an extent, it was like they didn't care. But at the same time, it was that they understood why I was crying. And at the same time, it's like this feeling of... the best way I can describe it is a we get it. But not like a we get it, it was a we understand. In this dream, the thing that always comes to my mind is that saying that death is a cruel mistress. As much as these beings are loving and compassionate towards humanity, they're also pitiless towards it. And when I'm in this dream, and I'm experiencing these things, I felt just very safe. It's really hard for me to put the feelings in the dream, or the feelings into words, because it's like I don't know how to fully describe it. Like I said, I was crying. I felt like they didn't have pity, but they had sympathy. And Hell was, I think, the one, that moment, something just sparked with Hell in me. It was just this beautiful goddess that made me feel safe and understood, but she, at the same time, had no pity. And every time I see Hell's face, I look and see that's those two different sides. I see the side of a woman who feels remorse and sadness for society, who feels sad when someone dies and they're crying because they've left things behind, but another side that is judging that soul based on their actions. And I feel like, and not, no, this isn't a feel, from this encounter, from my experience with working with Anubis or the other encounters with the Morgan and all these other gods of death, it's the same thing. They all have no pity to people, but they have sympathy towards them. These gods of the dead love us unconditionally, but will punish us depending on what we do. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that will punish you for silly or stupid things. They can judge us because they know our true intentions. The only real evil to me in the world is doing something you know is going to be bad, but doing it anyways because you can. And that is, excuse me, how I describe this encounter. These gods, these gods of the dead, these gods of death, these beings, embodiments of death, they love us very passionately. But because they are beings of death that have to judge us based on who we are, they cannot have pity towards us. Because with pity comes biasment. And they are incapable, or they are not incapable, but they know that as their role of the gods that they are, they cannot have that. And for some reason, with Hell, I can't help but look at her face and feel like I want to cry. Because it's like looking at a woman who understands you, who's not here to hurt you, who gets everything you've gone through, but on the other side knows that she is not capable of casting pity on you. And Anubis to me is the same way. Anubis expresses this by the fact that he is probably one of the most intimidating gods you'll ever look at. I mean, you just take one look at that big grumpy face of his. I don't know why he always has a grumpy face. Take one big look at that grumpy face and you will probably flee for your life. But his actions will always speak louder than his words. Anubis will always protect you. He'll always be there for you when you need him. He'll hold you when you're scared. He might look terrifying, but deep down he's not. And the Morgan was also expressed like that in her own mythology. She would always appear to people before they died. But she never normally appeared in terrifying ways, and those who work with the Morgan oftentimes will always describe her in that way as well. She was a goddess of war, but she was a goddess of fair war. And all of these gods of the dead and these gods of death, they embody these very similar characteristics. But of course, they're all beings of death, and they're very different from each other in many different ways too. Anubis is very much more father figure. Hell is a bit more deeper and affectionate. The Morgan is a bit more professional. And if you work with these gods, you'll always notice they're different, but the aspects of who they are always the same. I do want to say that Anubis, I'm not too sure if Anubis is pitiless or not. Sometimes I feel like he might be incapable of not casting pity on people, but I think some of that is because Anubis cares more passionately about souls and lost people than not some of these other gods do, but he just has a big more drawn to the lost souls, which might be why he switched to God of the Dead and not a god of death, because death can't have pity, and it seems like Anubis has pity. However, I still personally, from my own personal experience of hearing the encounters of people who have seen black people who were in hospice dying and seeing a black dog sitting in their corner, I can never shake that Anubis isn't some being of death. But that's a video for a different time. But I wanted to describe this to you guys, and to sum up for those who might still be confused, we are all brought to the gods of the dead, or the gods of death, when our time comes. They will judge us with no pity, no empathy, no sympathy, or yeah, they have sympathy. They will judge us with no pity. If you are capable of confessing to your own sins, your own faults, wrongdoings, and your heart is no longer weighing heavy, then the gods will let you into the afterlife, or whatever that may be in terms of what truly lies beyond there. But these gods will judge you in their own counsel with no pity. But when this happens, when you do die, know that they understand. They understand. They know you died and you're sad. They understand. They're not without their empathy and sympathy. They get it. They love you, and they understand you and why you feel this way. But at the same time, they cannot judge you with pity, because if they judge you with pity, then they will only be playing biasment, and they can't do that. They will do it on nobody. So, I hope that answers everybody's question. I hope you guys all have a great night, and may the gods be your guiding path.